If you don't know the early days of Saturday Night Live and the first cast and those iconic actors, I don't think you're going to enjoy this movie nearly as much as we did.
I still think there's something on screen worthwhile. And so I would actually challenge you on that.
The Untitled Film Project Podcast. Go see the movie, then come hang out with us. Let's talk about it. This time we're talking about Saturday Night, the frantic dramatization of the 90 minutes leading up to the very first episode of what is now an institution. We call it SNL.
My name is Lorne Michaels. I'm the producer and creator of Saturday Night. We're excited because there's never been a television show like this.
Okay, but what kind of show is it, Lorne? Do you even know what the show is?
Did anyone ask Edison what a light bulb was before he harnessed electricity?
Who are you in the metaphor?
And we have a big question that we're also going to ask this week.
What is your favorite or best SNL sketch of all time?
What you're
There's probably about 9 to 10 that if you polled 100 people, you would get that 9 or 10 most of the time. But we'd love to know yours.
Like
what
Family
is it?
Feud.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's right.
And you have a chance to win. Okay, since we're celebrating the 50 years of SNL, one of the classic eras has got to be with Mike Myers and Dana Carvey. We have a signed copy of Rolling Stone by Mike Myers and Dana Carvey in their Wayne's World attire. This is for real. It's aged and it is finely preserved, as you can see. But you have to listen for the secret word during the episode, which will be very evident when you hear it.
You will not mistake it.
Saturday Night. That was the original name of the show, and it's the name of the movie that shows what went into the making of Saturday Night Live. Let's get some initial takes. Let's start with Justin Bradford this time.
So this was chaotic, entertaining, and funny. And to those that have seen it, it reminded me of the Christmas episode of The Bear.
Yes.
Just nonstop, heart pounding. You don't know what's coming next. Whenever there's a small break, you're going just to breathe, to remind yourself back to reality.
Yep.
And even though obviously it's not a documentary, there's so much that was added for entertainment purposes, or they took things that happened later on in production that weren't the first night. I was okay with that, given that it was entertaining. They did everything for entertainment purposes. It was an interesting look. I thought the cast, they casted this very, very well. And it wasn't for necessarily making them look just like the person. They got the actors and actresses that they knew could play a role to make you believe that they were that character. They weren't going for doppelgangers or anything like that. They were casting for the sake of this person can embody the personality traits and the way that the body movements of this actor during this time period. So looking at this as a period piece comedy, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I love that they got the essence of these people instead of the exact likeness.
Yes.
And that's kind of what I like about this, because I think if you take somebody who's maybe just grown up with Saturday Night Live in the last 20 years, there's a take it for granted aspect we have to that show. But what I love about this movie is it gives us kind of a peek into they didn't know if it was going to work. They didn't want it to work, some people. And, so almost not recognizing people at first, even though they're characters that we have come to know, the people that love, the classic Saturday Night Live. It was almost like they were unknowns then, and we kind of got that they're unknowns to us. So I don't know. Credit to the casting. I also think if you don't know the early days of Saturday Night Live and the first cast and those iconic actors, I don't think you're going to enjoy this movie nearly as much as we did and anybody who's into the Saturday Night Live history.
That's an interesting thought, because I thought when I left the theater, I think people would care. And I think that because, yes, I know who Dan Aykroyd is and I know who Chevy Chase is. Fine. I'm not, a stranger to those people, but I did leave the theater thinking I was fascinated by the process. I was fascinated by the fact that they nailed so many of the characters. And we're talking like little things, like the way Chevy would talk in certain things and how he was so obnoxiously showy, but in a subtle way. Like it wasn't like I'm going to get on stage and proclaim it was more just like a jab or something. And that actor nailed that. So I actually would take issue with the fact that I do think if you're not invested in SNL as an entity, and you're not invested in those actual real life people, right, and their careers or whatever, I still think there's something on screen worthwhile. And so I would actually challenge you on that. I think that's my initial take. Is I think Saturday Night does such a great job at giving you, and when I say you, I mean everybody, not just diehards, a really great look into this pop culture phenomenon that we call Saturday Night Live.
So if you're challenging him, which one's Belushi, which one's Chevy? And is there going to be a...
This is where I say, Gover, you ignorant slut.
And I'm the bigger guy, so I'll take Belushi, I suppose.
Put on the bee costume.
Oh, we'll get to that.
There is so much in Saturday Night to talk about. Let's go deeper. And I just want to throw out there that I love the device. I mean, it's like 24 and Jack Bauer. You know, they only have so much time to get this, to pull this off. So I think the using of it's going to be, in 90 minutes, this show has got to go on, was an excellent choice to make this movie have momentum and tension and all those things that you talked about earlier, Bradford, are they going to be able to pull this off? I think that was a great choice.
Yeah, and what I am totally okay with, like I said in my initial take, was so much of this stuff didn't happen opening night. But everything was influenced by things that really did happen at some point in time. Like Garrett Morris singing "Kill All the White People."
That was awesome.
Yeah,
that did not actually happen at a sound check that night, but that was a song that he did sing at one point in time during it. In terms of John Belushi refusing to sign his contract, there's so many other things. The one thing that did stand out that I learned was the whole Dan Aykroyd open affair with Rosie Schuster. I did not know that was a real thing that
was news
happened
to me.
So, and when I looked and going, was that that was real? I didn't realize that Dan Aykroyd was considered such a womanizer either. Because when you think my age as a millennial, I think Ghostbusters,
right?
Dan Aykroyd. That's what I immediately associate him with. Yes, I know he's part of SNL. I didn't grow up watching. I've watched the episodes after the fact, but I was in the pop culture era during the late 70s.
That's not where you attach to him.
I don't attach him. So to see him portrayed as a womanizer and everything, I'm going, well, now I can see it based on his personality and things like that. I can see it more. So it did open my eyes a little bit to where I wanted to research. And that was the big thing for me, is what all did they take? And it didn't matter to me that this didn't happen opening night, but all of it was relative somehow for entertainment purposes, but still SNL connected. And I appreciate that they went deeper into SNL history to find all these ways that they could just make this make sense in that 90 minutes leading up to it.
Yeah.
I didn't care for the first season or two of SNL when I went back and watched them, right? I don't know, probably 10, 12 years ago, whatever it was, where I think they finally released the first season on a box set, I think is what happened.
Yeah.
And so I went and saw them, bought them, whatever it was. And I remember thinking like, oh, everyone talks so highly of this first season, and I understand the historical significance. It's a live show. I mean, I get all that. That's not lost on me. But I mean, the comedic value of the different things. I was like, it's hit or miss. I don't have a connection to the first couple seasons. I came into it, meaning SNL, in the late 80s.
Same.
So Phil Hartman, Dana Carvey, Mike Myers is just beginning. Right, there's all kinds.
It's a great era.
Kevin Nealon. Heavy hitters. Jan Hooks is incredible. Never always gets overlooked. So there's all kinds of things there that I can point to and go, that was hilarious. That's a classic pop culture moment. The Reagan Mastermind sketch is amazing. All these different things. So that's kind of where I started. But I really did think, as a student of comedy, I'll go back and watch this first season that everyone always talks about how great it was, and I'll find the brilliance in it. And I really didn't.
Yeah, so that's where I think there are some things that happen in movies and other franchises that you look at what was supposed to be classic and revered, but it was only because nobody had done it before.
That's right.
And with the exception, you could say, like, okay, Monty Python, there's some, there's people across the pond that maybe have been doing things, but of that era and of that, we'll just say, buttoned up of a network, NBC, they just, here's the perfect example. Love me some J.K. Simmons as Milton Berle. Oh, okay. Man. Incredible performance, and it was also an excellent reminder of what they were juxtaposed with. Okay, all right. It's either Uncle Milty with a bunch of showgirls, dancing on a stage, which was so 20 years before that, the same old crap, or a rerun of Johnny. They were going to just go out there and try some weird stuff.
Oh, nice Johnny tieback. That was excellent. Almost missed that. So my point of saying all that is that I didn't really care for that, but I still left having a deep appreciation for what they pulled off after seeing this movie, right? And I think director Jason Reitman's main goal, I think, is to pay homage to that first crew and that first seed of 50 years ago when the Not Ready for Primetime Players, which they actually work into the film, they got their start and they created this thing, and I think it was awesome. I don't have to like the show. I like the show now, but I'm saying at the time, I don't have to go back and go, oh, well, of course I loved it because I loved Chevy Chase and I loved Dan.
Right.
No, I did not have to do that because I didn't.
This movie stands on its own merits. You're not relying on your memories of that era.
And especially, too, it brought to light the cast of characters they did put together in real life. I bring back Garrett Morris again in his background in theater, not in comedy, and they kind of addressed that with Lamorne Morris going, "What? So why am I here?
Why am I here?
Why am I here?" And then even Jane Curtin, why is she there? Because of her, she's a little bit older, but still considered hot.
Yep, right.
As well, too. Like it really brought to light some of these things that we know this existed.
Right.
Especially me. I was not born yet.
People thought these things about them.
Right.
And they voiced them.
Yes.
Exactly.
Because that was the era that you felt like you could voice them.
Right. And one of the things I did want to bring up in terms of going into casting of these characters and why I felt it was important as well, too, something that stood out to me, and I forgot where I read this, so this is not an original thought, but I want to make sure we discuss it, is not every single actor they got to play these roles in Saturday Night had a background in comedy. They chose people they thought could portray properly these characters, like Cory Michael Smith, who portrayed Chevy Chase, is not a comedic actor at all.
He was great.
He's a serious actor. He played the Riddler, but he's also in May, December. I mean, he's played serious roles. Riddler, not saying serious, but it's a dramatic type of role, the way it's portrayed. It's different. It shows how they took so much time in casting properly the people that could play these roles and not just going for straight comedy, because that's not what they needed for this to be successful.
Yeah, no dig on Gabriel LaBelle, because this is a Lorne Michaels perspective movie, but Cory Michael Smith is the standout for me in this movie as Chevy Chase. He got his absolute machine gun ready comedic ass hat as well vibe. Perfect.
Yes.
I mean, he was so good. I would nominate him in a supporting role because he was that good.
He was great. That was a standout for me. Thought Dylan O'Brien as Dan Aykroyd was good. We didn't see enough of him. Yeah. I think, which I think is what you want. Right? Never, always even want more. But to me, I didn't think that. This is what it pains me to say because I know he's like a legend, but I didn't think Matt Wood was that great as John Belushi. In other words, I thought he played the part well if it was just a random dude, right? I believed all his performance. It's not like he went up there and he was amateur hour, but I didn't believe he was John Belushi, especially when the other people are so well cast.
They were stronger.
But also that they looked like the original, the real person, and you take them in a snapshot and you put them together and you go, they could be cousins. You can kind of you kind of get where your mind in a movie like this, a biopic, it starts to blur the lines of what's reality because it's believable enough.
Right.
Okay, sorry. computer problem there. I didn't believe he was John Belushi at all.
Interesting. And what is interesting, I go and look at his IMDb.
Yeah.
He doesn't have that many credits. His name. So it shows, even if you didn't like it, it shows the thought that they put in, that they weren't just going for big names at all for this. They were trying to cast who they thought was right. Because you look at this for Matt Wood, his last credit was 2018, one episode of Instinct. Like,
so he's
not a lot.
But I think that's actually that's a part of, not the Milton Berle one, but I think that's a part of this. Those people in 1975 were all not ready for primetime players.
They were
all of them. Nobody knew who they were.
They were all unknowns.
All unknowns and obscure.
Yep.
Well, guess what this cast is? Essentially the same.
And that's what I loved.
Aside from the big names playing bigger names.
That's right. But
that's for a reason. The big names play the big names.
Yes, for sure. Mm-hmm. So I really like the fact that we got people that we've never seen on screen before. It was like, oh, that's awesome. Because I'm not distracted that's Vince Vaughn playing Chevy Chase.
Exactly.
I like
Yes.
Yes.
It gets in the way.
Yes.
You're allowed to dive into it and believe it in the moment, which is why they didn't have to go for doppelgangers.
Right.
Because they're able to find people to play the roles.
But they were doppelgangers enough.
Right.
I absolutely believed I was watching archive footage of Chevy Chase.
But that they could mold them into it, even just with styling, makeup, hair, and everything.
The chin dimple, the haircut being a certain way.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah. All right, it's time for scores on Saturday night. Let's kick things off with Jeremy Gover, who I consider the SNL file of the three of us. I mean, you're a student of comedy, and this is, one of the big biggies of comedy, Saturday Night Live.
Technically, I'm a student of stand-up, but yes, I'll throw comedy in there for sure as a general thing. So I had one major issue with this movie, and I think it's the only one, actually. The slower... Well, okay, let me back up. There's... This whole movie, as we talked about, is based on chaos. The chaos surrounding the show about to go on the air. Is it going to go on the air? Is it not going to go on the air? Is Willem Dafoe's character, who is he's the NBC exec, right? Like, he comes out and he gives the speech where you think, oh, he really is going to back Lorne Michaels or whatever. And then you kind of see him, 20 minutes later, undermining the situation. Like, hey, Chevy Chase, you're the next big thing. You should think about doing a talk show. Let's talk after this. All this kind of sliminess going on
for dramatic purposes.
Yes,
that apparently did not really happen.
No, right. But I'm saying like those kinds of things, right? It's all chaotic. Even if it's that kind of thing, a persuasion of this and that, and you're creating doubt for the audience or the characters or whatever. But there's 3 instances, 2 of which I remember for sure. One is the ice skating scene with Belushi, of course, in the bee costume.
Yeah.
And then the second one is I think it was one of those comments or one of those conversations from the open affair where they're kind of backstage and just talking at a very slow. Oh, well, you know what? When he grew up, he just, Here's why this is a problem. That took me out of the movie. Not because they were slow, but because they were slow. The whole thing is chaotic. The whole thing is fast. The whole thing is we got to get this on the air. And they keep telling you 37 minutes, 22 minutes, 18 minutes. Where's John? I don't know. We got to go find him. 15 minutes. If he's not out there, we don't have a show. And then they're just leaning against an ice rink, and John, you going to come play? And he's skating around, and they're back and forth. Oh, it's fine. No.
It's like a Hallmark Christmas movie for a few minutes.
I understand. I totally understand that you have to give the audience time to breathe. I get that. But the movie grinded to a halt in those 3 specific spots. And it was in such contrast to the rest of the pacing of the film. That is the only real problem I had with it, because Jason Reitman's direction was awesome. The characters and casting were great. The little side stories of Laraine Newman flirting with this guy who's not noticing her, and then it was all awesome. All awesome. 7.5, but only because I was taken out of the film 3 different times for scenes that, they needed to be there, but they could have easily written it in such a way that it was still anxious. And all of a sudden, all that anxiety went away. And you're like, you are about to go on the air in 12 minutes. And I don't mean that in a positive way. There's a way to do that also that's positive, where the audience is like, let's go. And it wasn't like that either. It was like, oh my God. It was negative. 7.5.
Okay. I tell you, this for me was a fun movie because I love tight, highly tense dialogue. This is an Aaron Sorkin-esque walk and talk movie. It's a walk and talk.
Yes, it is.
On speed.
Yeah. And for me, like, that gets me going. For me, it's like, swing. Which also happens to be our secret word.
That's your key word.
Swing.
Told you wouldn't miss it.
Because it's so much fun to see people pull off that kind of dialogue where they're walking on top of each other, in their dialogue, even while they're walking and going up elevators or getting onto a lift and being raised up to the lights. I just love that. It just means it was really well written. Some of the things that I didn't like about the movie are some of the things that were leveled at the original show, which was, I think, the female characters, not just the on-stage Laraine Newmans, Gilda Radners, but even Lorne's wife, partner. They got a little short shrift on this movie. I think they could have, given us a little more. It was male heavy. Maybe it needed to be because the show was. I don't know. But I would have liked to have seen a little more of that. I thought they jammed maybe a few too many fan service things in, like the Julia Child bloody skit, like, hey, we're not going to use it this week, but we're sure going to use it in a few.
I thought it informed on how ideas came together, so I was okay with it.
Yeah, I know that some of these ideas, they simmer in the writer room of SNL, but there was just a couple too many of those things. But all in all, I really enjoyed Saturday Night, and I still think you need to appreciate the original cast to fully enjoy this movie. I think you can enjoy it without that, but to fully enjoy it and to get where I am, you had to appreciate those people in that day. Me being the old guy in the room, I'm giving it an 8.
Okay, not far off.
All right. So going on to things that were real, one thing I want to make sure is the whole Billy Crystal thing.
Yeah.
Like how that really happened.
Yep.
He was cut.
Cut from the show.
It was a true thing. Obviously, they made up.
Yeah.
Well, obviously.
Things changed.
Later, but things change, and so it's one of those things that was there that I think it was important to address, that you have this legend in the business was cut from the first episode.
Because from a filmmaking perspective, you can easily cut him out of the whole movie.
Yeah, you didn't have to.
You didn't have to, and then just let it be like a thing that you just go, oh, Billy Crystal's part of the scene. But no, they found a way to get him in.
Right.
Yeah.
No less than 3, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then from another thing in the casting perspective, too, it was Nicholas Braun who played Andy Kaufman and Jim Henson.
Yeah.
Same guy. Played both. I thought that was great as well, too. It's like, well, why not? And
that's cool.
And Andy
Jim
Kaufman
Henson
take, I think, was and the Jim Henson one.
Oh,
I thought
my
it was so great. There were so many fun moments throughout this movie. And Jim, to your point with the writing, it's a theater thing, too, when it's just the talking on top of each other.
Yeah.
It's you need to start your line when the other person hasn't even finished theirs yet. And that's how it makes it just go and roll.
And feels real.
It feels
the way
real.
people talk.
That's how people talk. You're not waiting for the line to end before you say your line. That makes it feel unnatural. And especially in a stage performance.
Yeah.
It felt like this. That they were, the writing and the way they executed the script was very, very well done. And that added to a little bit of the chaos because that was it through the whole movie except for at the skating rink. The entire movie was like that. So I appreciated that part of theater.
Yeah.
Being within this as well, too, with the writing. So with that, I also give it an 8.0.
Oh, all right. So we sit somewhat in the same pool here, frozen pool in front of Rockefeller Center.
I'll take it.
Long scene. Don't forget that you can win this absolutely signed original copy of a Rolling Stone magazine with Mike Myers and Dana Carvey in their Wayne's World costumes on the cover. But you have to tell us the secret word, which we pointed out just a couple of seconds ago. And how else do they get this prize? Because knowing the secret word is not enough. You have to do something.
So when you click that link, you're going to have an opportunity to enter this contest every single day. You can enter the keyword. You can do a bonus entry. You're going to visit our YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. You can visit all these pages. You can follow us. You can interact with posts. There's so many ways for you to have entries to win this fabulous prize.
Swing. Oh, this is going to open up an interesting can of worms because there's so much to choose from. 50 years of SNL. The big question is,
What is the greatest, best, favorite, whatever, however you want to take it, what is the best SNL sketch of all time? I'm not going to give any examples because I'm afraid to take somebody else's. So let's start with Jim.
Okay.
Because, and this is not a joke, you have the most experience with SNL. So you have more of a breadth of knowledge than, let's say, we do.
And what I'm curious here is because the generational thing.
Yeah. That's kind of why I'm starting.
How people remember SNL, how they
Yes.
connect to. People always say, well, back when SNL used to be funny.
Yes.
It's nonstop of that, right?
That's
Every
right.
generation connects with certain bands of
That's right.
characters
That's
and
right.
cast members. So
That's
I'm very
right.
curious with our age splits here, how that will
And that's
affect
why I
it.
want to start with Jim. for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because that is true. Having lived through the entire 50 years of SNL, even though I was quite young when it came out. The interesting thing I have seen repeated over and over and over is that when you were of a certain age, you loved SNL, you thought it was really funny, and then you hit an age where the cast changed, you changed, your situation in life changed, and you're like, yeah, when SNL was funny. But it's happened over and over and over. So, like, it's this amazing cycle. If you get a chance at a family reunion, just bring up, SNL, and somebody will say, yeah, well, it was
And then
funny.
you get is SNL back?
Right.
If you're around a family dinner, Thanksgiving, Christmas dinner, whatever, and somebody starts talking politics, this is how you get them off. What's your favorite SNL era? And then just watch it spread like wildfire.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Great.
You've just saved families.
You're welcome.
So saying that, I do have a lot to choose from, but I'm going to go to, I think, one of the weirdest skits, and I don't even know why it makes me laugh so hard to this day as it did the first time I saw it. The official title of the skit is Patio Lavas. And this is a skit that involves Will Ferrell, Christopher Walken, Rachel Dratch, and they're the intellectuals, weirdos on a patio, and it has that famous line that I absolutely love. My belly sluggish, filled with goat meat. It's what? Why? Where is this coming from? Why is this resonating with me? Why am I laughing so hard? I still don't know, but I love Patio Lavas.
I will jump in here because I think the better lava sketch is when they're in the hot tub with Drew Barrymore and Jimmy Fallon. That's my favorite of those sketches.
Okay. Yeah.
So funny.
Maybe because that wasn't the first one. The first one just hit so hard, so weird.
For sure.
I didn't think that's the era that Jim would go with. I'm very pleasantly surprised.
Yeah. I adore that skit, and I don't know why.
You want to go next?
Okay, yes. I have an honorable mention.
Okay.
It's Matt Foley, Van Down by the River.
Yeah, yes.
That is
One of the greatest sketches of all time. Although I would
Iconic.
argue, as a student of comedy, that it doesn't end well. That like he leaves and the family locks the door. I love you, Dad. I love you too, Dad. And it's this weird, awkward ending.
Yeah, but until you get to that point,
the first 85% is like
and the breaking of character
greatest.
During it as well.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, so much that is just iconic, and they just let him roll. Let Chris Farley roll.
If you want a great behind the scenes story there, go look at or go listen to Fly on the Wall, the Christina Applegate episode. I think around the 10-minute mark, I've listened to like 20 times. I think around the 10, 12-minute mark, they start talking about that sketch for like 8 or 9 minutes, and it's just awesome. Her recollection of it and his, and then they share it together because it's Spade, obviously. It's awesome.
Fly on the Wall is a podcast with Spade Carvey and Carvey, which, I mean, if you want your behind-the-scenes stuff, it's gold there.
But for that sketch, though, I said it again, the Christina Applegate episode is awesome. Go ahead, sorry.
So my favorite, and this is one that I still quote to this day, all through high school, college, just this is iconic for me, I think, for the era, is Celebrity Jeopardy.
Oh, God.
French Stewart, Burt Reynolds, and Sean Connery.
Yes!
One of the most iconic sketches of all time, because you get Suck It Trebek.
Yep.
You get Texas with a $.
Yep.
I mean, there's so many key moments in one sketch. How many sketches have multiple quotable items in it, right?
Right. That bring you to tears.
Yes.
They're
and
so
then
funny.
You say it, you immediately go back to one sketch. You're thinking in a matter of a few minutes, you have so many things you can quote. That is it for me. That is the one. And so many times those characters reoccurring is difficult to choose just one, but that right there, that one is the iconic Jeopardy one for me.
Okay, well, speaking of Christopher Walken, and I know this is not a unique answer, but I was waiting for everyone else to go so I could make sure that if I had to pivot, I could.
Okay.
Number one is Cowbell. It's the greatest sketch of all time, other than maybe Van Down by the River. But again, I would argue that didn't end well. So half a point off for that. Cowbell is top because not only is Will Ferrell wearing this shirt too tiny for himself, but I've got the backup. I've got the background story that apparently during rehearsal, he's wearing a regular shirt. So he comes out for the actual live taping in this shirt that's too small. And so that's why Fallon laughed at everything, but that's why Fallon's laughing, so much. Catan loses it a little bit.
Fallon did laugh in every sketch.
And then, but Christopher Walken comes in. Obviously, he's got that great line of "I got a fever." Right, that's not going to rehash that. But he's got other things like I put on my pants like everyone else, but when I put my pants on, I make gold records. Yeah. And Catan goes, "What does that even mean?" Never question Bruce Dickinson. It doesn't make any sense. And it's so funny. And, by the way, side note, it was in The Hole. It was the sketch before Good Nights because it wasn't thought of very highly. It was like this throwaway sketch.
Oh, man.
Right.
It's just the best of all time.
Yeah, that is an excellent answer, and and those are usually where they put the skits they think won't work.
Yes,
it's not going to hurt us. 3 minutes before we sign off.
If people don't get there, who cares?
And how do you know it's iconic? I cannot hear "Don't Fear the Reaper."
Yes, without the cowbell,
I cannot hear it the same way.
Peek inside, behind the curtain. So I am a morning radio personality. We were actually playing "Don't Fear the Reaper." I didn't know it was coming up. I didn't see it in the queue of songs coming up. But as it's playing, I'm feverishly typing in that skit on YouTube so I can grab the quote, "Needs more cowbell," and played it and got it on the air over the end of the song where it's just instrumental. And it was like, yeah, that's what I do.
Because you make gold records.
It's time to close out the show where the whole cast is on stage waving, just like Saturday
piano.
night. Maybe a little bit of sax. He is Jeremy Gover. Justin Bradford. I am Jim Chandler. This is the Untitled Film Project Podcast. Don't forget, if you want to win the signed copy of Rolling Stone with Mike Myers and Dana Carvey's autograph on it, it can be yours for the small price of being a fan.